And staying on that beat, my co-host Mama Vio Abaje will now be interacting with Dr. Hilda Ampadu, who is actually the Inspector General of Schools, the National Schools Inspectorate Authority, for us to get a better understanding of what this means, what measures have been put in place, and what we should expect as a people. Mama V takes over from...
So whatever is on your mind, why are you not sending your child to school? What are you not clear about? Kindly send it to us. On Twitter, use the hashtag AMShow. We will also put the WhatsApp number on the screen so you can send us your messages. You can also go to Facebook. We've posted the questions there, and you can send us those questions so I can put it to her. It's all about you connecting with her on this very important day. I want to say good morning to you, Dr. Hilda Ampadu. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Mama. Thank you for coming.
Great. So the president addressed the nation yesterday and gave us the figures for the COVID-19, which got a lot of people, people got scared because the numbers are really going up. And then there's reopening today. So I want to find out, first of all, what the COVID-19 guidelines are, and specific to private schools in general, or schools, because that's what you handle.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So National Schools Inspectorate Authority, we are set up to enforce standard and ensure quality in all schools, all pre-tertiary schools, public and private. So usually it's said that we focus more on private schools, but it's actually all schools. And it's an agency under the Ministry of Education. Now, if you think of Ghana Education Service, they are proprietors of schools on behalf of the government. So they have the same right in the system like most proprietors of private schools. So the advice is that most private schools submitted their COVID-19 management plans on what they plan to do to manage COVID-19 in their schools and ensure learners are safe. So we advise that they go by the guidelines, which include the hand washing regimen, sanitizer, face masks, distancing, etc. that they have in them. And so we expect them to go by the guideline. And so if you ask if we have put out any guidelines on our own, we've put out some broad areas where schools are supposed to focus on to ensure they have paid attention to, like the hand washing system, sanitizer, face masks. We also advise parents that when you are sending your learner to school or your child to school, you should ensure they have the basic requirements. They have at least a sanitizer and a face mask. In as much as government have said they will distribute PPEs, I want parents to also take their role in this seriously, to also equip their children before they drop them off at school. Yes.
You can understand why some parents are still not very confident in the system that we have. And so some are waiting to see how the first week will go, for instance. Some are waiting to see how the second week will go. But how confident are you in what is in place, whether private or public school?
I'm quite confident that the Ghana Health Service is on top of what they are doing. Yesterday on JoyNews, Dr. Ampadu was on there, and he was stating the measures they put in place to ensure rapid testing, to ensure rapid contact tracing. Now, every school has been mapped to a health facility. And actually, for private schools, I engaged the owners of proprietors of private schools last week, and I walked them through the process of ensuring that your school is mapped to the Municipal Health Directorate and the Disease Control Office in that Health Directorate. So there's a system in place at Ghana Health Service to support every school should there be an outbreak or should there be a suspicion of a case in the school. So with that, I have confidence that Ghana Health Service will help us alleviate any fears or any doubts in if the unfortunate happens, what will happen. Ghana Health Service takes over the case, it becomes a national case, and they will handle it to the end. So I think with that, I'm quite confident that we have a process in place.
I had an extensive conversation with the Deputy Director General of the Ghana Education Service last week on the public schools. So I want to ask specifically with the private schools, is there a directive on the number of children in a class, for instance?
So the answer is not usually black and white, because class sizes vary in terms of even physical space varies. So what we advise is to keep the social distancing meters. So if your class can take 30 students and they can sit according to the meters allowed, then you're allowed to keep them there. So what we enforce more is the wearing of face masks. and the sanitization, because now we know that COVID is airborne to some extent. So whilst you are protected, you ensure that you don't get infected. But in terms of the seating arena, depending on the class size, then you go by the meters that are allowed. Then you are able to keep the children in the class. However, if you have a class of 60 students, for instance, and the room is said that they cannot sit 2 meters apart, then you, the school, are required to make further arrangements. You can even run a shift system if you need to, so that you can accommodate all your students. But there should be no reason why you should cramp all 60 students in a class just because you want them to be there to learn. Safety first. Safety first.
In the school where my children, they used to close at 3 p.m. But I realized that with COVID, now that they're going back, they're closing at 4. The explanation they give is that from 7 a.m. they will be doing the protocols, which will take a bit of time. So they've extended the time. My question is there a specific directive on contact hours?
So for contact hours, there's no specific directive, but there's a recommendation, especially for the lower years, from the kindergarten or crèche up to P6. We recommend that you keep them in school for a few hours, because we don't expect, all the science out there says that kindergartners are not expected to keep the masks on throughout the day. So the longer you keep them, the more uncomfortable they become, the more jittery they will become, and they will stop going by the protocols. And so we were recommending that for the lower years, they keep them for about 5 hours of the day. So that includes arrival and then departure. So they are not in the school long hours. Now, if you have to supplement with other forms of learning, most private schools can afford that, then you do that. Maybe you give them assignments where they'll go home and continue. So you give them homework that will last, if typically homework was an hour long, maybe now homework is 2 hours long. They do more of the work at home in the interest of safety. So that's what we recommend to proprietors.
Another issue, well, has been school fees.
Yes.
And if you were to monitor social media, particularly last week, people were uncomfortable with the fact that either the fees have stayed the same, or in some instances, people are actually charging for COVID-19. What is the direction? Are you asking private schools to increase, decrease, maintain what they were charging before?
So I will just use this opportunity to explain. If you own a private school in Ghana, you are running a school as a business, as a private citizen, which the Constitution allows you to help government provide education to the populace. Now, since you are running it as a private business, government has no business dictating how much you charge for the service. So we do not regulate school fees. We recommend. So in this case, we recommend that proprietors should be, aware of the times we find ourselves in. And parents have had to take a lot on their shoulders, and to work with parents to come up with prices that are reasonable. But in terms of government issuing a directive saying that you can't charge this amount of money or you can't charge that amount of money, the law doesn't allow us to do that currently. So we cannot prescribe what school fees should be charged. Now, that is also why the Constitution sees it fit that the government should provide schooling for its populace. So that's why the public school systems are there. So any citizen who chooses to go the private way, there are some risks involved that you have to take, and that's some of it, because we cannot really regulate what they charge for the service that they render you. So we can make recommendations, but we cannot regulate per se.
Should we expect public schools to charge for COVID-19?
No. In the public school system, did you say public school?
Yes.
In the public school system, there's zero charge for any and everything. Government bears all the cost of every charge. That's why government fumigated the schools. Government is providing PPEs. Government is telling parents that you don't have to pay any school fees. Even PTA fees have been scrapped in the public system. So you shouldn't be paying anything for COVID testing, for COVID PPEs. Everything has been supplied by the government. Yesterday I was listening to Professor Boko Amankwa, Director General, Ghana Education Service, on Joy last night, and he made the same assertion that they are taking care of every cost associated with managing COVID at the public school system, which he hears. So I don't foresee any school saying that any parent should pay anything for COVID-related costs in the public school.
Great. What if the PPEs haven't arrived and you want to be proactive?
So what we'll advise is that, and I said it earlier, when you're sending your child to school, it would be best to give them some kind of protection. In as much as government has said we'll provide the PPEs, we know there are inherent delays because COVID is nationwide and we are managing schools nationwide. So there may be a few delays here and there. So if I'm a parent sending my child to school, I'll make sure at least they have a mask and a spare one. So the one in a bag and one on whilst they go, and a small bottle of sanitizer so that they are at least protected, and in hope that in due course the government will come in and give the PPEs. Some PPEs have been distributed, but I'm not sure it's gotten to every school. So I will advise parents that just equip your child with the basic tools they need to protect themselves. So just 2 masks, one on, one spare in the bag, and a small bottle of sanitizer, and then government will step in and do what it has to do in due course.
You know, usually we have very wonderful plans as guidelines.
Yes.
But what if the schools are not respecting those guidelines? What's the mechanism in place to monitor?
So we, as an inspectorate, will go around schools at random and ensure we'll be embarking on several monitoring and evaluation to ensure compliance of the protocols. So across the country, I mean. So in terms of will schools go by the guidelines, we advise proprietors that it is in the best interest of the population, not just that school, not just the proprietor, not just the learners in that school, but all of us. We should be rather keepers because the disease doesn't know anyone. So we'll advise them to go by the protocols, but we also do our job of compliance by going around the schools and ensuring that the protocols are being followed. And schools that are found to be in violation of the protocols will be penalized. The president said that yesterday in his speech that we will not spare anyone who is just abandoning the protocols and not going by.
But practically, what does that mean?
Practically, if you're a school and you are not going by the protocols and exposing children unnecessarily, we will let you shut down if you cannot go by the protocols, because safety first. We have to ensure the safety of our learners. That's our key goal. So if we come to the school and we inspect your protocols, we found out that your hand washing system doesn't exist, your sanitizing system doesn't exist, the social distancing systems do not exist, you have no business running a school at this point. And
does that include public schools?
That includes public schools. That includes public schools. Remember that we are in a pandemic and safety is what is on everybody's mind. So we won't say that because the public school is owned by government, then they should spread the disease, because we all get it. So public school, private school, if you are not going by the protocols, you'll be made to shut down.
I asked that specifically because I know the challenge that we have with some of the public schools. Some of the class sizes are too small. Either that or the children are too many in the class, and
yes,
it becomes practically impossible to physical distance.
Yeah, so in those school systems, in the class where you have a small class but a larger learner size, they're going to run a shift system. So that's what the Ghana Education Service is proposing to the leadership of those schools, that you look at your class size. If you cannot sit children in a social distance recommended meters, then you should run a shift system. So one batch will come in the morning for 5 hours, the other batch will come in the afternoon. So all manner of proposals have been put out there for school leadership to take advantage and ensure the safety of learners.
If a school is not respecting these protocols, and you have not, you're doing random checks, so you probably may not have seen it. As a parent or as a concerned citizen, where can I report?
So as a concerned citizen, you can report to the National Schools Inspectorate Authority. Remember that we are responsible for all schools, from kindergarten to SHS in the system, public and private. So most people tend to think that we are for private schools, though they report a lot of private school related issues. Public schools also. If your child is in a school and the school is not going by the protocols, you as a citizen should see it as something that is of key priority for you to report in the interest of all of humanity. And we'll get in there and make sure they do the right thing. So report to us any school type in the pre-tertiary system that is not going by the protocols. If you're a parent, if you're a staff of the school, if you are in the neighborhood, you find out that, okay, I've observed that children keep coming to this school and they just go in and they are not doing much to protect themselves, just report to us and we'll go there and make sure they do.
Okay, I'll come to the means. So if there's a telephone number that you want to put out there, but I also just want to announce that we want you to ask your questions. It's not about me putting the questions out. So time for you to get interactive with us. If you've got a question on reopening of schools, you're worried about something, you dropped your child, or you observed something unusual this morning, kindly let us know so I can ask the question. You can connect with us. The hashtag is AMShow on Twitter. And you can also send a message via WhatsApp, or you can go to Facebook. So here are some of the questions. This one says, yes, I am sending them, because one of the questions that we put out is, are you sending your child to school? So this is specific to that. Yes, I am sending them. I have talked to them about the safety protocol, social distancing, washing of hands, and most importantly, wearing of mask. And I believe Christ will be our helper. This is Aaron in Kumasi. Here's another one, says, never. My son will be in the house, and if possible, I will get a personal teacher for him. I won't send my son to his grave over grade that has no value. Do what you think is best. Okay, I guess, for your child at this critical time. This one says, with recent happenings and knowing someone who died from COVID 3 days ago without any underlying health condition, for me, it will be a bad decision to send my kids back to school this time, maybe later. Another one says, they're gone already. For how long will this COVID-19 take us hostage? Life must continue with observation of all protocols. Another person says, kindly add your name and where you're connecting when you send us a message. This one says, with recent no, I'm scared. My 2-year-old isn't too comfortable in the nose mask. We'll have to wait a little while. All right. Another person says, but even the tidying up of their classrooms is more important to use nose mask because of the level of dust in the classrooms and prevention of COVID. So where are the ones the government promised? Why should it be a teacher holding the check gun instead of getting securities to do that? Ghana, the teacher is supposed to be inside the classroom and teach. Okay, so I guess maybe this is from one of the reports from my colleagues around the country, which I haven't seen. Okay, but I don't know what specifically you want to address from the messages that I have read. Is it our choice as parents in the end to make the decision whether or not we want to send our children to school?
In the end, yes, it's your choice to make the decision, because the law says that your child should be schooled. You should send your child to school. But now there's all forms of schooling now, as COVID has taught us. I know parents who are saying they're going to homeschool their children. In the Western world, that is a norm. People do it. They choose that option, and it works out. Maybe the practice is coming here. We have to regulate that, because for us, wherever you choose to educate your child, we have to ensure that learning has happened and they are getting quality education. So I will urge parents that there's a parent there who said, no, never, they will keep their child at home. COVID has come to stay with us. We are going to live with the virus. So means of living with the virus is what we need to practice now. How do we ensure our safety, but we continue with our way of life? It's what we all need to figure out. So nobody has the exact solution as to how we're going to solve it. But in the interim, we have to go back to our normal lives and live it as much as we can. I believe the president said that in his speech yesterday as well. So it's come to stay with us. Now, there's been a lot of learning loss where our learners have been home for 10 months. You think of those in private schools that could afford virtual learning, they got some learning. But how about those in the hinterlands?
But that was not even adequate. I mean, it was still very difficult.
Very difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
So we think the best place for a child to learn is in the classroom with the teacher interaction. So we are doing our best to make sure that the children do not lose so much learning. It's across the world. It's not just Ghana, by the way. We also watch the international space of what is being done. We know in the UK, they will open it one day, close it the following week. In the US, some states. So we are watching all that. If it gets to the point that the president needs to close down schools, he will not hesitate to do that. But will not put any child at risk unnecessarily. So there are measures in place to ensure that we have confidence in the system. So for the parents saying that they will never send their child to school and they will keep them at home, I will say that COVID has come to stay with us. So for how long will you keep your child at home? Let's try and respect the system that has been put in place and have confidence in it. And we as parents should play our part as well. We should be proactive now. We shouldn't just be reactive. So when you are sending your child to school, make sure they are equipped. When you're in the school, be inquisitive. Go and find out if the protocols are being followed. Don't just drop them off and run to work because you are running late. Because now safety is a key concern for everyone. So whilst you are there, just park. Just walk around the school. observe some things. Are they following the protocols they said? It's the school clean? Are they doing what they are doing? And also play an active role. If you find, like the parents who are saying that the teacher is holding a gun, the temperature gun, the teacher shouldn't be holding the temperature gun. The teacher should be in the classroom helping students settle, because students also have, most of them are feeling nervous because we are giving them so much advice from home and they are getting so much advice at school. And I agree, it's the security person who should be doing the temperature checks. I think when you walked into Nasia, you saw that our security people are the ones doing the check, not our staff. So
but in public schools, typically, do you have a security person?
In the public schools, they don't have a security person, but they have casuals that they can opt in to do this kind of work. So it doesn't have to be a teacher. There are so many casual staff that they have on the school, non-teaching staff, that they can train to do this work. So a teacher shouldn't be the one standing at the gate trying to take temperatures. They should be in the classroom, calming nerves of students who are there to learn.
Okay. Let's just try and see if we can speak to a few people. My guest is the Inspector General of Schools, National Schools Inspectorate Authority, Dr. Hilda Ampadu, and we're in her office having this conversation, really important conversation, because schools reopened. They are reopening today. They've reopened. Some of us have already sent our children to school. Some of us say we will never do that until COVID goes away or until we are convinced that the situation is really under control. So let's try this. You can give us a call if you've got a question on your mind. 0302-211-69102. 0302-211-69102. We can do this in the next 5 minutes before we wrap up. But there are messages that I also want to share. This one says, I really support the reopening of schools, but if COVID-19 cases are on the ascendancy, why the reopening? We did inside. Another person says, is it compulsory to take your kids to school? What happens if you don't take your child to school? How sure are we that the students can take care of themselves while in school? And here's another one, says, how are they ensuring ventilation in public schools, especially when the students are overcrowded? So lots of questions in all. Why have we reopened when there's an upsurge in the cases that we're recording?
Okay, so remember the president had said in one of his addresses that schools will reopen in January. That was before the Yuletide, and then the new strain that he told us about yesterday came in with the numbers hiking. So plans were well advanced to open schools even before the hike happened. So it's not as though we saw a hike in the cases and we say, oh yeah, is this a good time to open school? That's not what happened. But we believe that in the interest of the learners, so that their life can continue, because COVID has come to live with us for a while. According to the various scientists researching into COVID, they don't foresee it going away for the next year or so. So for how long do we wait? And for how much learning loss can we take of our students? So the plan is to roll it out and see how it goes. Let the children go back to school, the learners go back to school. We ensure the protocols are in place, we enforce the protocols, and then should the need happen to bring them back home, the president will always bring them back home. The president said the safety of the learners is his first priority. And so he will not endanger them in any way. So we'll watch it, and we are managing it closely. Should we advise the president that the schools need to be closed so that the learners go back home? I'm sure the president will listen to that. So it's something that we are managing very closely and paying close attention to.
Somebody says if you don't send your child to school at all, what happens?
Well, if you don't send your child to school at all, they lose the opportunity to learn and build a life. As the president said yesterday in his speech, that education is key on his priority, and we've seen it. So making sure that everybody get access to education is what he's trying to do. If you don't send your child to school at all, you deny them the opportunity to get the education that they need to get to build a successful or a meaningful life for themselves. So I believe everybody should send their children to school.
Okay, yes. All right. I was trying to do the impossible, hoping that it would work, but it didn't. So that people can join us via phone. But I think that I've run a lot of questions that people have posted on the various social media platforms enough, and these are the sentiments, really, if you look at all the issues that we've tackled. So maybe finally, if there's a contact number to the Inspectorate Authority, so that if people observe certain things that are not going well, they can quickly report to your outfits. Okay,
so we have a few numbers, and also we are very active on social media and on email. Our email is info@nasia.gov.gh, And our social media handles are Nasia, GH_GH. Our numbers are 0549 137 015, 0302 907 589, 0202 907 539. So if you experience anything in the school, or if you have anything to tell us, we investigate everything. We will just take your complaint, we'll look into it and make sure the appropriate authorities are aware, or if we have to take some action, we'll make sure we take some action. So we are here to serve, and we are here to ensure that parents and the whole school population's nerves are calmed in this period that we find ourselves.
Dr. Ampadu, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for allowing us into your office and having this conversation with us. So that will be it, really. For those of you who are still worried, maybe this conversation will help. You can tell us if you've changed your mind after this conversation, if you're confident in the systems that we have, but make sure to report any incident. Maybe not just the negatives, also the positives, so that other schools could also learn. So from Roman Ridge and the office of Dr. Ampadu, the Inspector General of Schools. Inspector General of Schools. Yes. Okay. I'd like to say thank you for watching. Back in the studio, Kadi has got some show business news before we wrap up the show.